Today, we're grabbing a stack of sources that they decode social change, behavioral contagion, and these really seismic shifts that happen when an idea or a product or a trend just suddenly explodes.
Right, from total obscurity to ubiquity.
Exactly. We're diving into the mechanisms of the tipping point.
Our mission today is pretty straightforward. We want to cut through the complexity and, pull out the foundational rules that govern these rapid, unexpected social epidemics.
Why do some things catch fire and others just fizzle?
That's the question.
And there is no better starting point than the incredible, almost unbelievable case of hush puppies. The shoe.
Oh, that's a classic example.
It really is. You have to imagine a shoe so profoundly uncool, so deeply associated with, like your grandfather, that by the mid-90s, the company was ready to discontinue it.
Sales were at rock bottom, something like 30,000 pairs a year.
Yeah, they were dead.
Then something bizarre happens. In '94, executives start hearing these rumors that the classic brushed suede shoe was suddenly hip.
And it wasn't them. The fashion had been reverse engineered. It was a handful of kids, right? In the East Village, Soho.
Super well-connected, trend-setting kids. And they were wearing them precisely because they were so out of fashion.
It was ironic.
Totally.
Pure underground word of mouth. It just defied all traditional marketing logic.
And then it starts to spread upward.
Yeah, soon you've got influential designers. We're talking Isaac Mizrahi, John Bartlett, Anna Sui, using them in their runway shows.
And the result wasn't a slow recovery.
Not at all. It was an instantaneous vault. Sales jumped to 430,000 pairs in 1995.
And then quadrupled the following year.
It's insane. They went from being a historical footnote to cultural dominance in, 24 months?
Now hold that thought about the shoes and think about a completely different social phenomenon.
Okay.
The mysterious rapid decline of crime in New York City. In the early 90s, the city was, it was facing extreme violence.
Over 2,000 murders a year, consistently.
And then, seemingly without warning, the crime rate just plummeted.
Within just 5 years, the murder rate dropped by over 64%, and experts just scrambled for explanations.
Right, you heard all the theories. Better policing, the crack trade declining, the economy improving.
But those were all slow, long-term trends happening nationally. None of them really explained the sheer speed and the scale of what happened in New York.
Exactly. It was too fast, too specific.
It wasn't a gradual shift.
And what's so crucial to understand here is that the resurgence of a dusty old shoe and the radical drop in violent crime, they followed the exact same mechanics.
Even though they're in completely separate worlds.
They acted like contagious viruses, they tipped. And this whole deep dive is about unpacking the three fundamental principles that govern how these epidemics, how they reach that tipping point.
Okay, let's unpack these rules. The first principle, the one that kind of governs everything, is just contagiousness.
That's right. Ideas, products, messages, behaviors, they have to spread like a disease.
And we're not even talking about complex ideas, are we?
No, not at all. The source material uses the most basic example, yawning.
Yawning, okay.
It sounds trivial, but yawning is this powerful, almost uncontrollable act of contagion. You can see it, you can hear it.
We can just read the word yawn and it can trigger it.
Exactly. It's visually, orally, and even emotionally contagious. It just plants that seed that, hey, maybe you're tired.
So if a simple physical tick can spread that easily, then a cultural idea like hush puppies are cool can obviously jump from person to person.
Exactly. And once you accept contagion, you have to grapple with the second principle, which really challenges our core intuition about the world.
Okay.
It's the concept of non-proportionality. It basically says that cause and effect do not have to be balanced.
And this is a huge shift in thinking, right? Because we are all wired to believe that a big result requires a big effort.
A huge marketing budget, a massive policy change.
Yeah. Is that assumption just wrong when it comes to social epidemics?
It's fundamentally wrong. With contagions, the tiniest input can create these seismic shifts. We assume linear growth, but epidemics are geometric.
They double.
They double and double again. Think about this riddle. You take a standard piece of paper, maybe 1/100 of an inch thick, and you fold it 50 times. How tall is that stack?
Right. And most people guess something manageable, a big book, maybe a small building if they're being generous. But if what you're saying is true, the real answer is wildly larger.
It's truly mind-bending. The height of that stack would be about the distance from the Earth to the sun and back.
Wow.
That's the mechanism of an epidemic. It grows from a single piece of paper to astronomical distances in just 50 steps.
So the key insight here is that the initial effort, that first fold, that first handful of cool kids wearing the shoe, it's disproportionately small compared to the outcome.
You have to abandon the idea of proportionality entirely.
Okay, so if the effect is exponential, that explains the third principle. Change happens in one dramatic moment.
Right. It's not a gradual taper.
Crime didn't slowly glide downward in NYC.
It hit a critical threshold and just jammed on the brakes. Like water turning to ice, the shift happens all at once.
And the term tipping point itself comes from, what was it, sociology in the 50s?
Yeah, the 50s and 60s, they used it to describe white flight. Once a neighborhood hit a very small, specific percentage of incoming minorities, the remaining white population didn't slowly filter out.
They left almost immediately.
The whole neighborhood just tipped, from one stable state to another, in a flash.
So contagion, non-proportionality, and the sudden shift. But what actually controls whether we tip or not?
That brings us to the three specific agents that drive these epidemics: the law of the few, the stickiness factor, and the power of context.
Let's start with rule one, the law of the few. This argues that social change, well, it isn't democratic.
Not at all. It's profoundly oligarchic. A tiny percentage of people do a massive amount of the work spreading an epidemic.
Because they have these rare social gifts.
Exactly. And these few fall into three distinct roles. First, you have the connectors.
The social butterflies, the hubs, the people who just know everyone across every possible subculture.
They are the essential social glue. And they're valuable not because of their closest friends, but because of something called the strength of weak ties.
Now, that's one of the most counterintuitive things in the sources.
It really is. Studies on job finding, for instance, showed that most people found jobs not through their best friends, their strong ties.
But through acquaintances, people they saw only occasionally or rarely.
Right.
Wait, why are weak ties stronger? I mean, isn't my best friend more likely to help me?
They're more likely to want to help, but your closest friends, they occupy the same social bubble as you. They know what you know.
I see. So your weak ties, they provide access to new worlds, different information, different job postings.
And connectors are the people whose weak ties are so extensive they can link the whole social structure together.
The Paul Revere story is the perfect example here.
Oh, absolutely.
He and William Dawes rode on the same night with the exact same message, but Revere mobilized an entire region while Dawes, well, he mostly failed.
And the difference was that Revere was a gregarious connector. He was in political groups, Masonic lodges. He knew everyone. He had the network to activate an entire region to arms in a matter of hours.
Okay, so that's connectors. The second role is the mavens.
The information brokers. If connectors are the social glue, mavens are the ones who accumulate knowledge.
They love to know the best deal, the best restaurant.
The best way to assemble furniture, and they love to share that information.
The sources call them price vigilantes. That sounds a little intense.
Not cynical, though. It's motivated by a real desire to share expertise. They're the people who actually clip coupons, who read the junk mail.
And what makes a maven so powerful is that they're disinterested, right?
Yeah.
They don't have a product to sell.
Exactly. They just want to share what they've learned to genuinely help you. Their advice is trusted because it's seen as an expert resource, not a sales pitch.
And Revere, again, he was also a maven. He was actively gathering intelligence on the British before his famous ride.
Perfect combination.
Finally, we have the salesmen, the persuaders. The people with the skills to change minds, even when we're unconvinced.
And this isn't just about charisma, it's about technique. Researchers found that effective persuaders succeed by drawing others into their conversational rhythm.
Interactional synchrony.
That's the one. The salesman, subtly or overtly, matches the speed, the volume, the movement of the listener, and as the two people fall into this rhythm, a deep, nonverbal connection is made.
And that subconscious harmony makes you trust the message.
Much more readily.
Okay, that sets up the people.
Mm-hmm.
But the best people in the world can't spread a bad idea.
Yeah.
So we need rule 2, the stickiness factor.
Mm-hmm. How do you package a message so it's memorable and actually spurs action?
This is where we learn that, logic and fear often fail.
They really do. Take the classic Yale tetanus shot experiment. Students were given these detailed, compelling booklets on the dangers of tetanus. Some even had high-fear graphic images.
And they were convinced of the danger.
Totally convinced. And yet, only a tiny 3% actually bothered to go get the shot. The message was compelling, but it wasn't sticky.
Only 3%. That's nothing. So how did they tip the behavior? What was the difference?
The tipping moment was incredibly subtle. The researchers simply added a map of the campus health center to the booklet,
A map.
and the precise times the shots were available. And that one practical addition, a tiny contextual detail, caused compliance to jump to 28%.
Wow.
The students didn't need more terror or more information. They needed the message to fit practically into their lives. The map removed that final barrier.
That is fascinating because it proves stickiness isn't about being loud or sensational. It's about practical engineering.
Yes, and you see this same engineering in children's television. The creators of Sesame Street had to make a low-involvement, medium TV educational enough to teach kids how to read.
How do they do that?
They studied it rigorously. They used something called the distractor test, where they measured when kids looked away from the show.
And they found that kids didn't just pay attention when things were loud or flashy.
No. They watched when they understood, and they tuned out when they were confused.
The sources even mentioned they use eye movement photography to track exactly where the kids were looking.
Exactly. And they noticed that in certain segments, kids were fixated on the Muppet on Oscar the Grouch and not the word being shown at the bottom of the screen.
Which is the whole point of the lesson.
Right. The Muppet was sticky, but the lesson wasn't landing, so they had to constantly redesign, integrating the lesson seamlessly into the world of Sesame Street to make sure the educational content itself became unforgettable.
Which brings us to our final agent of change. Rule 3, the power of context. The idea that we are highly sensitive to small things in our immediate environment.
And these factors can start or stop an epidemic. The most famous example here is the broken windows theory in New York City.
The theory being that disorder breeds more disorder. A single broken window, a piece of graffiti, it signals that no one is in control.
It signals anarchy, and that invites more serious crime. It changes the perceived context of the environment.
So the city didn't just target violent crime. They targeted the small signs of disorder.
Yes. When David Gunn took over the subway system, he insisted on cleaning every piece of graffiti, train by train. It sent this unambiguous message that the context had changed.
And that was reinforced by Transit Police Chief William Bratton. He focused on fair beating people jumping the turnstiles.
A seemingly minor infraction. But they set up portable police stations right there in the subway to process arrests. And they found 1 out of every 7 fare beaters had an outstanding warrant.
And 1 in 20 was carrying a weapon.
By targeting that small sign of disorder, they were removing criminals and sending a massive contextual signal that the rules had changed for everyone. That subtle push was enough.
And context also governs our social environments, right? Specifically group size. There's a natural limit on how many people we can really connect with.
Dunbar's number, the rule of 150. Based on the size of the human neocortex, 150 is about the maximum number of people you can have a genuine social relationship with.
The number of people you wouldn't feel awkward joining for a drink.
Pretty much. And above that threshold, peer pressure starts to break down. The group loses its infectious quality.
Yeah, and companies use this. Gore Associates, the multi-billion-dollar firm, they adhere to this strictly. They limit their plants to 150 employees.
They literally use the parking lot. When they run out of 150 parking spaces, it's the signal to build a new plant down the road.
Wow.
And they do it to maintain that infectious small company ethos, where informal peer pressure, not formal management, maintains order and performance. It keeps the culture sticky.
So it's clear that the success of any epidemic, whether it's a shoe or a societal shift, hinges on these 3 things working together.
They're all interdependent.
So to summarize our deep dive for you, epidemics are driven by 1, the law of the few, these exceptional people. 2, the stickiness factor messages engineered to be memorable. And 3, the power of context small environmental factors that trigger big change.
And, understanding these principles gives you a real sense of hopefulness. The world often seems too big, too stubborn for any one person to affect.
Yeah, immovable.
But the truth is, the world is exquisitely sensitive to these small changes. With the slightest push in precisely the right place, like adding a map to a leaflet or cleaning 1 piece of graffiti, it can be tipped.
Which raises an important final thought for you, the listener, in our modern age. With the internet, social media, we're drowning in information.
We're creating a kind of widespread immunity to mass communication. People are more isolated, only trusting these tiny circles.
So this paradox means that the role of mavens, connectors, and salesmen is actually more critical than ever.
Precisely. Because they're the only ones who can consistently break through the clutter and the isolation. The modern challenge isn't broadcasting anymore, it's finding and activating those trusted voices.
The need now is to create what the sources call maven traps.
Yeah, and the Lexus recall in 1990 is a perfect example of this. They had a minor technical issue. Instead of a standard letter, they treated every single owner who were, by definition, early adopters and car mavens like royalty.
They call them individually, scheduled service at their home. They even washed their cars.
Lexus knew. They knew that by over-delivering to that small, captive audience of influential mavens, they could kickstart a positive word-of-mouth epidemic about their customer service that, frankly, continues to this day.
So the goal isn't targeting millions anymore. It's finding those dozens of highly influential, trusted people to break through that modern wall of information.
That's the real tipping point challenge of the 21st century.